Welcome to building the HM-293 Flying Flea. The previous videos we did covered building the ribs and building the spars, and now we're going to take those assemblies and put them all together and make some wingtips. This airplane has 4 different wingtips and they're all unique. The rear wingtips are a little bit shorter, the front one's a little bit longer, and left and right are opposite patterns of each other. So you have to build 4 different unique wingtips. So here's the right rear outer wingtip panel completed. This one's all done and just about ready to cover. It's been assembled, glued, sanded, and it's really a pretty neat looking design. I love the multi-pieced leading edge. You can see how that kind of tapers back. Then you've got the rounded wingtip, and then of course you've got that curved trailing edge. It gives it a nice sort of elegant elliptical look to it. There's a lot of woodwork involved here. When it's all together, it's really a nice looking piece of work. It's going to be almost a shame that we have to cover it. And over here is the front left outer panel. This one needs some final cleanup, a little bit of sanding and planing just to get it ready. But it's basically all together. It's the same construction as the other wingtip. The basic difference you see is in the length. Again, that front wing panel has a little more wingspan to it, and that's all done on the inboard part. There's 2 extra rib bays that make it a little bit longer. Otherwise than that, it's an identical construction. Here's the other front wingtip getting ready to be put together. All the pieces here ready to go on the bench. And all you really do is slide the wingtips over the spars, mark the locations where they go, and glue them in place. This is where the mounting hardware goes for the wing, so there's some reinforcing blocks made out of oak here. And these have to get planed down so they match the contour of the wing ribs. And there you can see it's no longer flat, it's a little bit curved. These notches are where the little leading edge spar will go. That's some reinforcing and helps get things lined up. And then the leading edge gets wrapped with 1/16 inch plywood to give it a nice shape and to reinforce the leading edge a little bit. In order to get the pieces of plywood to take the shape, I ran them under the sink, just got them a little bit wet so that you could fold them over without cracking it and then clamp it in place and let it dry. Once it's dry, you then coat the inside with polyurethane to seal it, and you can see there's a couple of strips here that aren't coated. That's where the glue will go to glue it to the ribs. And then you also have to coat the inside areas of the ribs themselves on the nose, because you won't be able to get at them once you put the leading edge on. And there you can see a little bit of foam reinforcing strip or rib that goes in place also. So this is one of the more laborious parts, was these leading edge pieces of plywood. Gets a nice tight curve around there once you soak it and let it dry, nice and rigid. But each of these individual pieces are unique, and they all have to be cut and fit exactly in place. So there's the outer 3, and then the inner one is straight rectangular. And here's the outer 3 on the other wingtip, which are identical. They're all sort of tapered, and then you get a little bit longer rectangular one on that front wing. Let's talk about the trailing edge for a moment. That's a little project all unto itself. It's made up of a bunch of individual strips, as you see, and you do that to get it to take the curve. You lay out the curve on the bench and screw down some gluing blocks, or some clamping blocks, I should say. Then you glue all the other pieces together, Put them down there and clamp them in place. Put some wax paper down so you don't glue it to the work surface. Clamp them in place and let it dry, and then once you pop it out, it'll hold that shape. And this is the shape you get. Once it's out and glued, once it's all glued together and dried, then you can take a hand plane and plane it down to the tapered shape for the trailing edge. It comes around the corner, and there you scarf it together with just a straight piece for the straight section that is also planed down and to a tapered shape. And then that gets glued onto the back of the ribs. On top of each of the ribs, you put a little piece of 16th inch plywood. That gets glued down and stapled in place, and when the glue is dry, you pull the staples out. The reason for this piece is it gives you a bigger glue surface for putting the fabric on. It's a big enough glue surface that you don't need to use rib stitching to hold the fabric in place. The glue will do it by itself, which is nice. And the rib that has to go over that mounting block has to get cut, since you can't slide it over there, so that gets cut in two pieces and glued in place. The spars are held up off of the workbench just by putting some blocks under them in a couple spots. Make sure that the spars are lined up and that they're perfectly parallel. The wing's built upside down since the top of the spars are straight and the bottom parts are curved. Here's one of the wingtips going together, and you can see the foam reinforcing ribs that go in between every other rib. Give it a little extra strength for that front decel, and you can also see the front spar in place, reinforcing that leading edge. Well, that's about it. That's what's involved in assembling these wingtip pieces. The biggest amount of work is probably the trailing edge, getting that curved, and all the individual pieces of the decel. An option, of course, is to just build this airplane with straight rectangular wingtips, and that would save you a lot of work. You wouldn't have to make the curved pieces. Everything would be straight, only one rib design. That would save you a lot of time. So it's kind of an individual choice whether you really like the looks of this elegant kind of elliptical curved wingtip, and you can decide if that's worth the extra work of doing that, or if you prefer to go the kind of quicker route and go with just a straight rectangular wingtip, which would be a lot quicker. And a lot of people have done that. For me, I enjoy the building part of it, and the curved wingtips are worth the extra work. Once you build them once, you got them forever. So that's it. That's this installment of building the HM-293 Flying Flea. The next one will probably focus on building the wing center panels, and they'll be a little bit easier. No curved pieces to do there, but there's more hardware mounting blocks and things to consider in that. So until then, have fun, and I'll check in with you later.